So I have to tell you, I fucking love this.
Um,
And
the,
I'll tell you why. It goes back to the roots of the 80s, right? This is a 1980s film, early 80s film, dude. To me, this is what started me on horror. This is one of those movies that felt so much like Porky's. I don't know if you remember. That was the first.
Oh, yes.
It was R-rated and it should have been X-rated, right? Yeah. This to me was like they were going back to those their I don't know how old they are, if they grew up on 80s movies, but to me, the reason I like this film, and I know a lot of people hated this film, you go read the critics, fucking hated this film. I loved it, and it's just because it brings me back to my roots.
Yeah, it's the context. I think the problem for many of the reviews, if you're going in looking for Saw, it's not. If you're looking for Friday the 13th, it's not. If you understand what the filmmaker's objective was,
it's 80s schlock.
80s schlock horror.
I'm laughing because this is one of those movies that goes near and dear to my heart, but every other critic just freaking hated. As a matter of fact, most of the critics said they would rather, go have their teeth cleaned than watch this film, was what one critic I read said about this. So the movie is called Bus Party to Hell. And it's the director is, and apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name, I do apologize. It's Rolfe Kanefsky. And the writers are Rolfe Kanefsky, Michael Mahal, and Sonny Mahal. And in simple, I loved everything about this movie. I loved it was gory. I loved it was tits and ass. I loved that it was so poorly acted. And they knew. That was the thing. That's what, critics are sitting there going, oh my God, the acting is horrible. Of course it's horrible. It's Tara Reid.
Tara Reid and the extras outside the bus probably went and got some Vegas performers to show up as extras. It was fantastic. I have the same reaction as you did. If you go in looking for Porky's, then you're going to love it.
Well, here's the thing. And I get why critics don't like this film, because you're watching this film from a 2000 perspective, late to, we're into the tweens. Now we're into the 20s, but this was made back in the tweens. And so many of those critics probably have never seen the 1980s schlock that you and I grew up on. Let me tell you something. This is the movies I grew up on. These are the movies where why I loved horror, because I was a young teenage boy. So, yeah, are there boobs? Hell yeah, there's boobs. Is there butt? Hell yeah, there's butt. Is there sex? There's sex. As a matter of fact, one of the funniest scenes in this film is when the main character is losing her virginity down at the bottom of this bus so she doesn't become I don't want to say what it is. But anyway, but that just makes it worse. And to me, that's 80s, man, because no matter what you do, it's... what was the Crypt Keeper? This to me is a Crypt Keeper kind of movie. I loved it.
Exactly. The effects were terrible.
Oh,
you know, when the green screens were being utilized, some of the decapitation scenes, you could clearly tell somebody didn't do a fantastic job of green screening, but it didn't matter. I don't know if there's a market for schlock horror movies like this. I don't know if there's patience for it, but those of us who grew up on the Meatballs, the Porky's Revenge, that would love this because we know it's bad. We know the actors are bad. We know they're not trying to be a Saw type of serious horror movie.
No.
This kind of reminds me of the conversation we always have. If you're a low budget movie, you're all either trying to make Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter, or your script is so good that you end up with something like The Battery. And this is not.
No, this is far from it. And Synthel, honestly, to me, this goes back to like the Planet Terror, right? That was another make of a bad cinema from the 1970s and 80s, right? So I constantly go back to my roots of horror. And, I started off with Christine from Stephen King.
Yep.
And but then the first horror movies I were watching were schlock, like Kingdom of the Spiders, right, with William Shatner. And then you kind of progressed into the trauma films of Toxic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes. And those really bad, what they said were real films, the Faces of Fear films, right? we're gonna actually watch somebody jump off a building, right? And so to me, this fits so well into that. And it was just one of those movies that if you enjoy schlocky 80s, poorly acted, but they know they're poorly acting, that's the beauty of this film. There's not a person in that film who thinks that they are going in for an Oscar.
Length was runs a little bit long. And there are some pretty good, and in a bad way, gruesome scenes.
Yes.
In the movie that I really appreciated. Reminds me of some of the other really terribly bad, gruesome to watch small budget movies we've seen before. But outside of the fact that running length is long, I loved it. I'd recommend it. I'd say go in realizing that this is not a serious movie. This is intended to be bad. It's a horror schlock movie. This is in the vein of One Cut for the Dead, which I know you didn't like. But this is more of a Troma style, of an 80s schlock. So in that context, if you keep that in mind, I'd say watch it.
Yeah. So Simple, I'm going to back you on that and say that if you're a 1980s schlock, 1970s, the bad horror film kind of fan, if you go in knowing that the characters are being bad because that's what they're doing, I think you're going to be pretty damn happy with this film. All right. Hey, Synthel, it's been great talking with you again. I can't wait for our next time.
Looking forward to next time.